All right, well, I had to do that by just getting you in the right frame of mind and do what we call mental agility. Okay? Creativity is all about the mind. It's all about stimulating both the left and the right brain. And so rather than me here just sharing with you lots of data and charts and all those kind of things, I'd rather get you engaged already in part of the experience. Well, let me just define what I mean by mental agility. And I'd like to share just a quick story with you, if you could indulge me. It has to do with two pretty innovative people at their time, world leaders who were faced with some extraordinary social changes that they had to enact in their respective countries. Mikhail Gorbachev, you remember him? Yeah, of course. You met him, so you'll appreciate this story very much, as well as George Bush Sr. Okay, remember George Bush Sr.? Two world leaders, they got together during a summit and they were trying to compare notes. How could they inspire and stimulate creativity and innovation in their respective countries? Because it was necessary. Both countries, to some extent, were stuck. And so they had to get out of that rut to affect a democratic and free world in the world. So they compared notes, and George Bush was particularly interested in Mikhail Gorbachev's experience because he, by that time, was receiving a lot of press. And so he asked Mikhail, well, what do you do to stimulate creativity in your country? Mikhail thought about that for a minute, and he said, well, I have my staff do mental agility exercises. He said, oh, that's kind of interesting. Tell me more about that. Well, Mikhail, talking to George Bush, said, well, for example, I ran into my Secretary of State, Edward Shevardnadze. Edward Shevardnadze was the Secretary of State for the Soviet Union at the time. And so he said to Edward, who is your father's son who's not your brother? Who is your father's son who's not your brother? Well, of course, Edward replied to Mikhail Gorbachev and said, well, Gorby, that's me, of course. Well, Bush thought that was a great idea. I love it. He understood now what he meant by mental agility. Very next day, he flew on Air Force One, went back to the White House, and George Bush ran into his right-hand person, and it was a gentleman by the name of Dan Quayle. I don't know if you remember that name. You know where this is going. He said to Dan, who's your father's son who's not your brother? And Dan said, tough question, let me get back to you. He runs out of the Oval Office in a panic, and he runs into then Secretary of State for the United States, Dick Cheney, and he says to Dick, he goes, Dick, who's your father's son who's not your brother? Dick said, Dan, that's me, of course. Dan said, thank you so much, runs back to the Oval Office, and he says to the President, Mr. President, I have the answer, and it is? Dan Cheney. And Bush says, no, it's Edward Shevardnadze. Boom. All right, a little humor to get you in the right frame of mind to start to stimulate your mind. But I do have a real serious mental agility question. Okay, I just want to check in with you. Here is your mental agility question. It's a sentence completion, so you fill in the blanks. Innovation is like ... Anyone? Innovation is like? Jazz. Great. Who said that? All right. What else? Innovation is like
out-of-box thinking.
Out-of-box thinking. Great. Look at this. Yes. Raul. Me. All right. Here. He gets 2 of us. One for your friend. All right. I gotta save one for another exercise. What else? Innovation is like?
Thinking that there is no box.
Thinking that, ooh. Oh, that's just so good. I like that.
Someone says creative improvisation.
Creative improvisation. Okay. What else?
I think it was operating in the third dimension.
The third dimension. Wow, Ron was right. Very smart students here. Okay, what else? Others. Innovation is like?
A dream.
A dream. All right, so which is it? Is it the box, not the box, a third dimension, a dream? Which is right?
Whatever you want.
Whatever you want it to be. Yeah, you know, innovation these days is being so talked about, written about. It's in the news. It's in organizations' lexicons. And yet, so few, I think, really grasp and understand it. We are in this field and have been in it for many years, and we're constantly thinking and redefining it. Part of our mission is to help make innovation a habit, go from a hobby to a habit. Many organizations, even the best of them, innovate and need to in order to grow, but don't do it on a sustainable basis. And part of our mission in life is to help organizations make it sustainable. So we do a lot of teaching, a lot of coaching, a lot of development of processes which help organizations make innovation a way of life. We see innovation on the same scale as finance, marketing, accounting, sales, brand management, strategy. It is a discipline like all of those that we describe. So part of our underlying mission is to give it that same level of credibility, because we think now more than ever, with the pace of change, the competition that's taking place, the turbulence in our world, that innovation is not a luxury, it's a survival skill. Okay, so what are those skills? Well, we're going to explore that for the next 40 minutes with you, and then certainly we'll spend some time afterward and ask any questions that you would like in terms of our specific experience, our point of view, and we'd certainly like to hear your point of view. Because while we think we're pretty smart about this, we don't have all the answers. So your insights